Hello and welcome to a standard deck profile. Today I want to talk about a casual deck that I've been playing that I've played recently in the no meta league I've been running. This is Wirbel. Wirbel is a restanding Vanguard control deck, which is pretty fun to play if you like blowing up all your opponent's cards, which of course I do. But it is not meta at all. This is a deck that you're never going to see this deck at like the top tables of a BCS or something. It's got a lot of flaws that hold it back. Mainly that its cards just are a little undercosted or underpowered for the cost they cost, and they're a little, sometimes you get a restriction that doesn't make any sense that other decks don't have to deal with. So without any further ado, let's get into the list, starting with our ride line. You can play any starter. And then our grade 1 is Demonic Dragon Mage Joko. And this is wrote upon by our specific grade 2. We get Energy Blast 3, draw a card, and choose our Vanguard, and it gets 5k until end of turn. This is just going to help with early pressure. You know, it's going to make it so they can't just one card guard your Vanguard. Then we have Dragritter Azhar. When this is written upon by a grade 3 with Wirbel in its name, you choose one of your Vanguards, and the cost of its auto ability is reduced by Counterblast until end of turn. So this is just going to give us a free restand for one turn. That's all it's good for. This ride line is not the best. You can play the Virgilla one instead if you really want. And then we have Hellfire Dragon Wirbel Dragon, which has a bunch of text. So let's get through it. First off, as an auto skill on V at the beginning of your main phase, you energy charge 3. So you're going to have 6 energy gained per turn. Then, as an act skill, you can energy blast 3 to choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. If you did not retire a card, this unit gets 5k. And if they're on grade 3, you can instead get 10k. And then, as an auto skill, once returned to the end of the battle it attacked, if you energy blasted 6 or more for the cost of this unit's ability this turn, you can counterblast 1 and restand this unit, and it gets drive -2. And then if you soul blast a card of the same name, this unit gets drive +1. So it'll be twin drive and a single drive if you have a copy of Wirbel in the soul to soul blast. And that is the part that's hard to pull off. You're basically only getting access to this extra drive on turn 4. Whereas every other restanding Vanguard deck generally gets it right away for some other costs like discard a card. So that's the ride line. Let's get into the main deck. We have 3 copies of Persona. Persona is very important for our numbers and for that extra drive. And then we have our grade 2s, starting with 4 copies of Latifa. We're playing an order package, so this card is excellent. What this does is when this card is placed on R, other than by unit card ability, you can, if you played a normal order this turn, you can soul blast 1, check the top 5, and call something, or add it to hand if it's a normal order with grade less than or equal to your Vanguard, and then you shuffle. So this can essentially let you turn 1 card into a full board, depending on what you hit off of the Latifa pile. But at the very least, you're going to get, 2 decent units. And then it has, when it attacks a grade 3 or greater unit, it gets 5k for every open circle on the opponent's side in the same column as this unit. So it can be potentially +10, and that's going to be pretty solid. 20k grade 2 is always nice. Then we have 3 copies of Dragritter Sadiq. This card, when it's placed on R, you either reveal Wirbel from your ride deck, or if you have Wirbel, you can use the effect. You counterblast 1, you look at the top 5, you choose up to 1 card with grade less than or equal to your Vanguard and call it, and then shuffle, and this unit gets 5k if the opponent's on grade 3. And then it has, at the end of your turn, if you energy blasted 6 or more this turn for your Vanguard's ability, with Wirbel in its name, you can retire this, and if you do, you either energy charge 3 or you choose a card from drop and put it into soul. Now, that's really good because energy charge 3 will put us up to 9 energy on our next main phase, which means 3 activations from Wirbel, and we have another card that can gain energy, so we can potentially do 4 activations per turn. And then if we don't have Persona Ride lined up, we can just put a Wirbel into soul from drop to hopefully at least be able to get the extra drive. Then we have 3 copies of Dragritter Bashard. This is probably our best attacker. When this unit is placed on R, you can choose a grade 3 with Wirbel, and it's right in your ride deck and reveal it, or if you have one on Vanguard, you can counterblast 1 and retire one of your opponent's rear guards, and if you didn't retire anything, you draw a card. So it's kind of like how Gandiva's retire cards used to work. And then it has continuous that it gets 5k for every energy blast 3 you paid for the cost of your act ability of your Wirbel Vanguard. So again, we can get this up to +20 for a 30k beat stick, which is pretty solid. Then we have 3 copies of Dragritter Nahala. This card is our best discard fodder for Ride. If you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Wirbel in its name, this unit gets boost, which is always a nice effect to have. And then it has a skill on R or on drop that if you haven't activated an ability of the card the same name as this turn, you can bind it and choose one of your grade 3 or greater Vanguards with Wirbel in its name, and it gets red text that every time it attacks, it gives the front row 5k. So that's really good because we're a restanding Vanguard. It's going to essentially be a free +10. Then we get to our grade 1s. We have 4 copies of Shenri. We're playing an order package, so this is really good. It goes into Soul and draws a card if you played an order or if your opponent's down to 1 unit, and it also gets 5k. Then we have 3 copies of Ivrines. This card, energy charges 3 on place, and then it turns off the energy generator crest's ability. So you can't energy blast 7 to draw. And then it has that you can, when you boost your Wirbel Vanguard, you can Soul Blast 1 to stand it, and it always just gets 5k when it's boosting. So it's a pretty decent sized booster, but specifically the fact that it's Soul Blast 1 and restands behind the Vanguard means we're getting a double boosted Vanguard swing. And then 3 PGs, nothing to write home about, and then 1 Elementaria, pretty standard stuff. Just play whatever PG art you like. Then we have 3 copies of Scarlet Flom for our order package. This card has the effect that when you play it, you draw a card, choose a card from your hand and reveal it, and if it's grade less than or equal to Vanguard, you call it. And then you retire something in the opponent's front row, and if you can't, then you get 5k to the card you called with this. And we can't use the other half of the effect because we're not on Overlord. It literally will do nothing for us. We're just playing this for an early order that draws a card. Then we're playing 3 copies of Best Harvest. This lets you draw a card every time your opponent's rearguard is retired during your main phase. Of course, our Vanguard is going to energy blast multiple times to retire their units, so we're essentially going to get to draw a card for every 3 energy, which is really solid. If the opponent has a full board, we can potentially draw 4 cards off of a Best Harvest, which is pretty nice. That's going to help make sure that you survive 1 more turn and help build a board. And then we're playing 1 copy of Drag Resonance. This card has the effect that when your Vanguard stands, it gives 10k to your front row, which is another really good effect. If you combine Drag Resonance with Mahala, you can get a pretty big front row. And then we have our triggers. I'm just playing 4 heals. You can play effect heals if you want. Then you have 8 crits. Doesn't matter what kind of crits you play, just play 8 crits. We're a restanding Vanguard deck. We want to sack the opponent as much as possible. And then 3 fronts. We always go Vanguard first once we're on grade 3 because it's a restanding Vanguard. And none of our rearguards really do anything to stand or anything like that. So swing Vanguard first, hit those fronts, give all that power to your front row, make big numbers. And then 1 Dragon Empire Overtrigger. Our deck restands at the end of battle, so we have synergy with this. We can choose not to activate the skill if we hit the Dragon Empire Overtrigger to get another swing with Twin Drive. So that's the main deck. Let's show what the highest power ceiling attack pattern can look like. Assuming we're on a Persona Ride turn. Assuming that we played a Latifa to get a Shenri. That we played this card this turn. That we bound one of these. And we played this card behind the Vanguard this turn. And let's say we got another booster. Let's just call another Shenri. So if we and let's also assume that we activated this grade 2 on the previous turn. It should be in the drop zone. So that would mean that we have a total of 9 energy going into this turn. 3 from our turn, 3 from this, 3 from the Vanguard skill. And then let's assume we just have a Scarlet Flom in the drop. A couple other cards in the drop. Doesn't really matter what. And then we're going to shuffle and assume we took 4 damage total by this point in the game. And then we'll start assigning powers, and we'll see how it goes. We're also going to assume we have 5 cards in hand, just to represent how thin would the deck be at this point in the game, so that the triggers are a bit more realistic. So 4 damage. That's actually all triggers and damage, which is very funny. And then let's assume 5 cards in hand. These are not going to matter. So we've got our setup to make sure you can see all the units. All right, so if we energy blasted, activate this, and then we energy charge 3 off of this to activate it one more time. Let's assume that this got plus 20. Let's assume we only hit 3 units, and that the last one we got 10k to our Vanguard, which is not an unreasonable assumption. A lot of decks have a unit that retires itself, or binds itself, or moves to soul, or whatever after it attacks. So it's not uncommon for your opponent to only have 3 units in play when it goes back to your turn. Latifah has an empty column in front of it, because of course we would snipe that column first with our Vanguard skill, so Latifah will be getting plus 10 as well. And then our Shenris will be getting plus 5 because we play Drag Resonance, which looks like I did not pull out to replicate. Let's go find that Drag Resonance real quick. There we go. So we have 2 instances of red text that do something when our Vanguard does something. So let's get to fighting. This booster also will have 5k. So our first swing, immediately we give 5k to the front row. So Latifah is going to get 5k. This card's going to get 5k. Our Vanguard gets 5k. And this brings us up to a 28, 38, 43, 51, I believe, for our swing, which is pretty good numbers. So we drive check. We hit a front. That's very lucky. Hitting fronts is always good when you're trying to go for the kill. Yeah. And then we do another drive check. I'm going to pretend we didn't hit this over trigger. A crit. Okay, a crit's pretty good too. So because we're resetting Vanguard, there's a pretty strong argument for just always putting it on the van. If they 2 to past us, they're eating a crit right now. If not, we have additional power on the unit that's going to attack next. And this is going to have a drive check, so it essentially represents another 10k power that it shouldn't have. So after the battle, we counterblast 1 to activate the Vanguard skill, and then we soul blast a Wirbel to get our drive back. And then we soul blast 1 for the booster to get it to restand. And then our Drag Resonance goes off. The front row gets 10k. So we have 20k here. This goes up like that. And then this gets another 10k. Which I am running out of dice to represent. So I'll just move the power of this Shenri up to plus 15 instead of plus 5 to represent that 10k. So then we swing with this with 1 drive. That's going to give another 5k to the front row from our promos effect. So roll these up. I'm going to move this die up here. And then this is going to be a 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 63, 68, 76. 1 drive. And we hit a non-trigger. So that's fine. That is going to end our Vanguard shenanigans. And then we swing here because this is the smaller number. This is 40, 50, 63, 73 with Persona. And then Shenri, of course, goes into Soul. We draw. Then we swing over here with this column. This ends up being a 20, 40, 55, 65, 78. Another gigantic number. This is, of course, all ideal circumstances. This is we hit a front. This is we had Persona Ride and the promo and the Drag Resonance in hand all together, and we had the best board possible. So you're, of course, not always going to hit this perfect board state, but when you do, as you can see, it's pretty scary. And if you hit something like double crit instead of front crit, you'd also be doing something like crit on both rear guards, so they have to guard it, everything post Vanguard, and then they still have to guard Vanguard if they're at 4 because the Vanguard could always hit another crit. So this can be quite threatening. We can only do this once per game because we're currently only playing 1 Drag Resonance, but you could adjust the order numbers. You could maybe go a 2-2 split with Best Harvest, or you could cut a Scarlet Flom, or you could just trim 1 other card to the main deck, but at that point you're playing a lot of orders, so I wouldn't recommend that. You can also play one of Justina instead of one of the various cards in the main deck. That is this card. She searches for an order for the cost of discard a card from hand on place, and lets you play that order from drop, and it goes back into deck instead of when you finish playing it. So that's another solid card to consider playing. I didn't end up playing it on my list because I think I just wanted the 4th Shenri over the first Justina, but you know, that's entirely up to you. I think after playing this deck more, I would put the Justina back in, but currently I'm not on it. So that's the deck. As you can see, it can hit some really big numbers. And while we were doing that, we also potentially wiped the opponent's board. So if instead of being on a drag resonance turn, we were on a best harvest turn, we could have potentially drawn up to 4 cards that turn. And then we would have, you know, much smaller numbers, but we'd have a much better chance of surviving the opponent's next offense. We ended up plussing a bunch of cards still regardless, which is nice. Meaning that we would have we would have passed the turn with a 10-card hand, which is pretty hard to die from. But that's all for now, and I'll see you next time.